Exercise 3, SolidWorks 2019. In Exercise 3, we're going to work on this forged ratchet body. And some of the features we're going to see are adding draft, as well as offsets, and making some additional features on here that you'll see, and some more filleting. So let's begin. First of all, this is what it's going to look like when we're done. We're going to start off creating the head. Then we'll create the transition section. With that, we'll learn how to create a plane by offsetting one. And then we'll create the handle. Start off with a new part file. So go to New, Part, and hit OK. Select the front plane and start a sketch. Select the centerline tool and glide over the origin. Click and drag up a vertical centerline about 1.5 inches in height, and then hit Escape on your keyboard. We're going to use this to mirror across the geometry. Now, to make that head, most people draw multiple circles, draw the lines in, make them tangents, snip it. This is going to be an easier method that I'm about to show you. So select the line tool, glide up to the left of that center line, but don't infer to it like this. You want to get to the left of that a little bit, click, and drag a 1-inch angled line across like this. So again, make it look like mine if you can. Then hit Escape. Now, click and drag a fence to surround the geometry. And so everything is selected, and we use mirror entities. Again, we learned about mirror entities in Exercise 2. Now I'd like to introduce you to the Tangent Arc tool. Find Tangent Arc. Click on that. Tangent Arc automatically creates an arc tangent off of an edge, and you could snap it to another edge. And we'll do that again over here. We'll click and get to this vertex, and once you get the orange dot, make sure you click. If you do it a little too quickly, sometimes you might leave a gap, so that leads to sloppy modeling. So take your time, make sure you see the orange dot before you go ahead and click. Hit Escape. Go to Smart Dimension and dimension the bottom arc first. Actually click on the arc, not the center point of the arc. Move your pointer to the lower right, just like I'm doing here. Click and type in 0.6 and hit Enter on your keyboard. Now go ahead and click on this arc at the top, drag it up to the upper right corner, just like mine. Click and make that 0.75. Next, you could either click on both center points of the arcs or click on, what's easier actually, click on the arcs themselves, but stay away from the midpoints of them. Go over here and click, and go over here and click when they turn orange. Move your pointer to the right and you'll see it should be dimensioning to the centers. If not, you can adjust it, but just to keep things simple, and I'd like you to practice. Hit Escape if it doesn't work and try again, or just select the center points. Be careful not to select the origin, because notice our center point is not aligned to the origin yet. Anyhow, make sure you get the dimension between the goalposts here, or the extension lines as they call them, and make that 0.75. And then hit Escape on your keyboard to get out of the dimension tool. Let's hit F on our keyboard for Zoom to Fit. Now what we want to do is we want to snap this bottom point of this arc to the origin, because the origin is our anchor point. It's a good idea, otherwise it just kind of floats. In fact, if you grab that center point with your mouse button depressed, drag it down, you'll see it's floating. Go ahead and drag it up and let it snap to the origin. If it's not a very far distance from the origin, zoom up closer, because SolidWorks doesn't like short moves. It doesn't pick up on very tiny little moves. It just assumes you're not moving it. So just be aware, make sure you lock that in. Once it's locked in, you'll see it will all turn black. That means it's fully defined, and you can see down in the lower right, it says it's fully defined. We're ready now to go to Features and Extruded Boss Base. Now, instead of blind, let's have it go mid-plane and set it to 1 inch thick. What that does, oops, I accidentally hit 11 inches. Didn't want that. Just type in 1 and hit Enter. And you can see it's extruding on both sides of the plane. Now, what are the advantages to extruding on both sides? Well, with symmetric parts, as I discussed earlier in some of the Exercise 1 and Exercise 2, It's great to lock everything into the origin. You have planes to mirror across, as you saw with our ribs in exercise 2. So there's advantages to definitely take advantage to use. Now we're going to add draft. So go ahead and click on draft on, and either type in 7 degrees or bump it up with the arrow key to the right. And you'll see that it's adding draft while it's extruding. Now it's getting smaller. Note that if you turned on draft outward, it would get thicker. But turn that off. We don't want that. What this is it's for a molding process, or in this case, it's going to be a drop forging. And imagine an ice cube tray. And ice cube trays, you'll typically not see them just straight down without any draft put on. And that's because once the ice is solidified, you try and break it away. If it were flat on all sides, it wouldn't come out very easily. So they put draft, so as soon as you move it a little bit, it comes out easier. And that's what they do with plastic parts as well as metals that are cast. So let's go ahead and hit the green check mark. Hit your spacebar and go to isometric and click somewhere on the screen. All right, now we're going to learn about the offset sketch tool. First of all, we have to start sketch, and we're going to sketch on this surface. So click on the surface and start a sketch. Now, while the surface is still selected, it's going to pick up on the topology when we go to offset entities. So find offset entities up here, click, and type in 0.125, but then check the reverse box. It's very rare, like some of the older CAD systems, you're able to put in a minus or negative. In SolidWorks, there's usually just a flip switch, so you don't have to deal with negative numbers typically. But in some cases, you can put them in. Anyway, we could go ahead and just make sure the reverse switch is checked, and you'll see the preview in yellow. Go ahead and hit the green check. Now, what we're doing with this offset is we're making a recess into the part for a cover plate. So let's go to Features and Extruded Cut. So we're going to remove the material, 0.125, and hit Enter. Go ahead and hit the green check mark, and now you have a recess. Now, the floor of that recess, we're going to have a reduction gear, a gear inside there in an assembly later, not in this lesson, but and also some mechanisms essentially inside there. So we have to make some cutouts, a pocket per se. So click on that face on the floor and start a sketch. Now let's hit our space bar, and I'd like it to select normal to, just to get the hang of it. What normal to does is it brings you normal to whatever surface, no matter what angle it's sitting at, and it makes it very easy to sketch planar to the screen. So let's now go to the circle tool, and we want to find the center, and that's the origin right there. Click and drag out a circle about 0.35-ish. Click. And now you'll notice there's no center to lock in up here. It is inferring to a quadrant, but that's not good enough. Here's what you do. Move your pointer to one of the arc or radiuses at the top. Could be any of those. And it will just let it float there for a moment. And a second or two later, you'll see a center point appear. Move your pointer away from the edge, and now you could go ahead and get to that center, click, and drag out a circle. Your circle, the radius should be about 5.5 or something like that, or 0.6 if you want. That might be a little too big, but go ahead and click. Now we're going to take a look at the trim tool, and we briefly looked at it in the last exercise, but let's give it a shot again. Go ahead and click on Trim Entities. Now you'll see that there's a variety of tools. The two of my favorite are Power Trim and Trim to Closest. Let's try them both. First, let's go with Trim to Closest. Trim to Closest enables you to hover over whatever geometry you don't want, and it will automatically trim up to the next intersections. So as I'm hovering over this particular edge, it's highlighted in like a magenta color, and that's what's going to be removed when I click. So go ahead and click. Fair enough. Now, let's try the Power Trim. Go ahead and select Power Trim. Now, Power Trim is great for multiple profiles that you're trying to cut. So in this instance, it's not really necessary, but it is a nice tool. Simply move your pointer up here somewhere floating and click, and notice as I'm holding down the left mouse button, it's scribbling through, and watch as it scribbles through, it removes whatever it touches, and it cuts it up to the next intersection, or trims it up to the next intersection. So those are two very nice tools to select. The other ones in between can be useful for patterns and such. We're not going to go over those in this segment. Go ahead and hit the green check mark. Now go to Smart Dimension and click on this bottom arc. Click to drag it out and drop it. Click again and type in 0.35. Now notice that's a radius, and if this is going to be machined, it might be healthy to actually have the diameter so they could pick an end mill and a reamer and so on and so forth for the proper size. And so with that, you could always change it pretty easily. Notice it says 0.35 radius here. Go to the far left side and go to Leaders, the tab up here, and you'll see the option to change it to a diameter. Automatically doubles it up, and you're ready to move on to the next. Go ahead and select this arc now, drag it up to the top, click, and type in 0.5. And again, if you wanted to change it to a diameter, go to Leaders over on the left, and go ahead and change it to diameter. Hit the green check. Now, rotate it a little bit, and let's go to Features, and go to Extruded Cut. We want to cut this at depth of 0.7. 0.7. And there will be no draft because this is a machined entity. So hit the green check. Now, the floor of that pocket that we just created, let's go ahead and click. We're going to put some through holes in there. So select this face, start a sketch, and again, hit the space bar, and you could go normal too. But if you like, you could hit Control 8. That's the fast key. Some of you like fast keys. Go to the circle tool, and we're going to draw holes. Now, there is a hole wizard. We're not going to learn that until the next exercise. So glide up to this point, drag this out, click to drop it. Don't worry about the size too much. Now, this one over here, again, we have trouble finding that center, although it did pick up on it pretty well. If you don't get it, remember the trick is to get to the arc and let your pointer hover over it for a moment, and it will show up. Click and drag this one out and hit Escape. Now go to Smart Dimension and dimension the bottom circle, and we're going to make that 0.35. Now we want to make this one equal to it. So rather than adding another dimension, let's have it controlled by 1 and hit Escape, and we will use a relationship as a substitute for a dimension. We'll make these two equal. And the way you do it, after you hit Escape, hold Control, select this circle, and then select this circle. And on the left, it will give you a series of options for constraints, or as they call it, relationships here. And we want equal. Don't go with concentric. That will put them inside of each other. Or we'll try. It will actually fail. But hit the green check. And now one dimension controls both. Now to note that in here, you could go ahead and click on the extension line of the dimension. And on the left, you get some options. Now we've seen this before with the diameter symbol, but we could also click in here and we could either type in x2 for 2 times, or we could actually write a note, PLCS, period, for places, 2 places, or whatever you want to do. And you could also put in tolerances. So like over here, you have the ability to go with basic, bilateral, limit, symmetric, min-max, fit. And you could put the precision you'd like in decimal places and what you would like to see on there, plus or minus. And there we go. So you can change those things pretty easily and add them, so later on when you detail the print, they come up automatically. Now with that, let's go ahead and go to Features and Extrude Cut and just select Through All. Let's add a fillet. Go to the Fillet tool and type in 0.125 and select this edge right here and this edge at the bottom. When you see the preview, hit the green check, and now we're done with the head. Now what we want to do is create a transition section to connect the handle to the head. And it's nothing more than a rod that's 4 inches off from center. And we're going to create, rather than create or take a plane inside here and draw a circle, because then it will leave a fragment inside, we're going to go ahead and learn how to create a plane. First of all, select the plane you want to offset from. And that's going to be the top plane. You can see it intersects right at the bottom. Now, go to Reference Geometry up at the top here, and Plane. You'll automatically see it's going to start offsetting one. You could grab the arrow and flip it, or actually drag it down, and I'm having a difficult time. So instead of that, I'm going to go over here and go to the offset, and I'm going to flip it. Actually flip offset, there we go. And we want to type in 4 inches and hit enter. Now if you zoom out, you'll actually see the preview down below, and that's exactly where we want it. Hit the green check. Now if you create a plane that you don't like, or that's not being used, click on it and hit delete, or hit undo here. Now we have a plane that we could sketch our rod on, or at least the diameter of it. So click on that plane, on the edge of it, and go to Sketch. Now rather than going normal to, we could actually just draw our circle there. So go to the Circle tool, and at the origin, when you get the orange dot, click and drag out a circle. Go to Smart Dimension, and dimension it at a 1/2 inch, so 0.5. Now you could go to Features and Extrude Boss Base. One of the reasons I had you keep in like an isometric view or from at this angle is because I want to show you this next tool. Now we know if we drag this out and we extend it with the ruler, we could get it pretty close and maybe not intersect too much into the model. But rather than having to do that, there is something better. So in our little area here, we hit the little arrow to the right of blind, you'll see you have some options. There's up to surface, or up to body, or there's up to next. Now the difference between them is that up to next will just go up to the next volume and connect to it and become one. Up to body will keep them separate, but it will still touch it. And then the up to surface would allow you to only select one surface. No, it's singular, it's not surfaces, it's not plural. So in this case we have a split surface this way and that way. We'd only be able to suggest that it goes up to one of them, and then we would have a gap underneath. So we don't want that. So up to next is the best option. Now if up to next doesn't appear, that usually means you just have to flip the direction right over here, because you might actually be extruding in the wrong direction and it doesn't see anything in front of it to go up to. So hit the green check mark, and now it's merged, it's combined, and we're ready to move on to the next. Now let's hide this plane. Click on the plane and find the eyeball here. It's hide. You could do that with anything on here. Don't do it to your solid typically. Then you have to go to the feature tree and select one of the features, and then find unhide by selecting the same eyeball. Now we're going to add the handle. Select the front plane once again. Start a sketch, hit your space bar, and go to the front view orientation. Proceed to zoom out with your wheel a little bit, keeping your model centered. Maybe move it up a little bit. You could hold Shift to zoom in and out with the middle mouse button, or Control to pan with the middle mouse button. Now we're going to do something a little unorthodox here. We're going to draw, and this is to show you some of the capabilities for especially conceptualization and how easy it is to move things around inside SolidWorks. We're going to go to the corner rectangle, and I know some of you are thinking, well, use the center rectangle, then you can center it. We could, but let me show you another technique so you can see how these relationships and constraints work. So go to corner rectangle. Draw over here on the right, click and draw out a rectangle or an imaginary handle. Go to Smart Dimension, dimension it at 4 inches in height and 1 inch wide. Proceed to find the center line, click on center line, and find the midpoint of this box. Draw up a vertical line, click and hit escape. Let's go back to Smart Dimension and dimension that vertical line 3.75. Now hit escape on your keyboard. Now everything is very flexible still, especially when it's blue, or most things are, unless they have dimensions on them. But watch what we've just done. Grab, after you hit escape, grab this vertex at the top of the center line, hold it down with your mouse button, and proceed to drag it to the origin. When you get the blue dot in the center, release it. You've just centered your rectangle for your handle. Could we have done it with the center rectangle? Absolutely. Just wanted to show you a different technique. All right, now rotate this a little bit. Let's go to Features, Extrude Boss Base. We're going to make it via mid-plane, and it's only going to be 0.75 thick. And don't forget to add draft. When you click on the draft tool, you'll see 7 degrees automatically enter in there because that's the last one we used. Hit the green check. Click off of it, and we're almost done. Now we're going to go ahead and add some fillets. So go to the fillet tool, and we want to add a fillet on this edge, this here. Notice we're still at 0.125. Keep it at 0.125, this edge here, and use your X-ray vision to get this one on the backside. If you can't determine which one it is, just rotate the part around and get this one. Avoid selecting the parting line in this instance, although you could. Go ahead and hit the green check. Now go to the fillet tool and let's set it to 0.06. Hit enter. And we want to fillet every edge off of this cylinder. Very simple. Instead of selecting all 4 of those edges, select the actual cylinder itself. It automatically takes the topology and puts a fillet in the intersections, provided it could fit it in there. And in this case it can, and we can see a nice preview. Hit the green check. Go to fillet again, set it to 0.03 and hit enter, and proceed to select this face. Now, if you select that face, it's going to add a fillet there. So let's select the face to deselect it. Select up here, and it adds it, and it propagates around. Or you could just select this edge here, or any of these edges, and it will propagate around. Don't forget you have to get the bottom as well. And hit the green check. Now to add text. On your quiz, I showed you one way to add text, and that's pretty much if it were on an arc. Let's say we want to add straight text, and we're going to put our name on this handle. Select this face, start a sketch, hit your space bar, and go to the front view orientation. If you'd like, if it's easier for you, hold the Alt key and the left arrow key hit several times until it goes full 90 degrees clockwise. Now, take your centerline tool and glide up to the handle here just by zooming with your wheel. And down here somewhere, a little off from the edges, click and draw a line across. Now, you don't want it centered, because if you made it centered, your text is going to rest on top of the line, so your text would be off center. So you're just going to eyeball it here, but you could add dimensions and locate it with precision. We're just going to have a little fun here though. Let's go to the A button up there, select the line, and proceed to write in whatever you wish. Keep it short, keep it simple. And now, turn off Use Document Font here. Go to Font, and you could pick from a variety of fonts that you might have on your system. I have some that are probably different than yours, so you may not find what I put on. So feel free to choose one. Stay away from the scribble fonts or the cursive fonts. Those intersect with each other and sometimes cause challenges when extruding. So keep it simple. And then over here in units or points, go with units. We want it to be maybe 0.3 inches high, and hit OK. And you could see the preview. Now, mine could go actually higher than that. So I'm going to go back to font, and I'm going to change it to 0.5. And that looks a little bit better. So now I'm going to go to hit the green check mark, go to Features, and Extruded Cut to engrave it. The depth of the engraving can vary, but maybe make it 0.01 or 0.02. So 20 thousandths. Hit the green check, and now you have your engraving. If you'd like to actually add color to it, simply select the floor of any one of those letters, go to the beach ball and hit the little arrow to the right of it, and if you want the whole text, go to Cut Extrude 4, and instead of selecting a new material, which you could do, you could just go over here and change the color to whatever you like. So that finishes exercise 3. Let's take a look at the labs now. Again, if you are working in the class on this, my recommendation is to actually pause and try and build these on your own, and then go back and you could watch how they're done. So here we have L3, and L3 is very similar. It actually incorporates almost everything we've learned in exercise 3 to make this. There's just some subtle differences. This is a tough one. So we could see it's 0.610 thick overall. It's going to have draft of 16 degrees. It's TYP is typical. And we have the radius of 6 underneath with 2 symmetric edges that go vertical, and then a globe on the top. So let's go ahead and try this out. Go to New, Part, and hit OK. Select the front plane, start a sketch, and we use the same strategy we used earlier when making our head of the ratchet. Go to centerline, draw a short little centerline, about 2 inches. Go to the line tool, in the lower left, little offset from center, click and drag a short 1-inch line at a slight angle. Hit Escape. Click and drag a fence to surround both entities, and go to Mirror Entities. Now use Tangent Arc for just the bottom. Don't use it for the top. Hit Escape. Now for the top, you'll see that these are flexible. You can click and drag that. The top, you actually want to use 3-point arc. 3-point arc, you click here, and then drag it out. And notice there's no tangency. It actually looks like it's going beyond the extents. And that's what you want for this one, for the top only. You don't want tangency for the top. Go to Smart Dimension, dimension this bottom at 0.6, and then dimension the top at 1.5. Dimension between centers. Remember, you could select this arc, stay away from the midpoint. You could do the center point, and click here, click to drop it. This is going to be 2 inches. And then we need to look at the angle. So let's go back, and we can see there's a 35-degree angle in there. So click here, and right up there, 35. Hit Escape. Now the center point needs to be locked in to the origin, just like before. Click on that center point, drag it down, and drag it back up and snap it. Now it's fully defined. And we could actually extend these dimensions out a little bit. There we go. Let's go to Features, Extrude Boss, 0.610, enter. Don't forget the draft, and there's 16 degrees of draft. Hit the green check. Now we have a little bit more detail that we have to add than we had on the last one. We could see from this view on the left, the radius in front is 0.25, and the radius in the back is 0.5. So usually you put the larger radiuses in first and then go to the smaller. Sometimes you have to reverse that though. But let's try it. Let's put on this one, click, type in 0.5 and hit enter. And with 0.5 and enter, we don't see it working. So this goes against the grain. So let's deselect that. Type in 0.25 and select this edge here. Put that one in first. Hit the green check. Go to Fillet. Now you could actually add multiple radiuses in here, but I'm not going to go into that right now. That's a more advanced topic. But let's go to 0.5. We're adding a second one here, and now it can accommodate the larger radius. Click. Let's rotate around the back. Select this face, start a sketch, and we want to use offset entities just like we did earlier. Click on offset entities, and let's take a look at the offset. We can see the offset here is 16 degrees to draft, 0.1. So we can hit reverse, so it's on the inside, hit green check, go to features, extrude cut, and it's 0.25 deep, but don't forget to turn on the draft and make sure it's going into it, not out, not flaring out. Hit the green check. Now let's flip it around, select this face, start a sketch, go to the front view orientation, and let's punch the hole in it. Now to locate the center, you might be able to get it. Otherwise, remember, you could wake up the center from going to the edge. Draw your circle in, dimension the diameter, and let's make sure that we have the proper, it's 1 inch through. There's no draft on that one. So features, extrude cut, and through all. Now we have to put like a little keyway in here. So select this face, start a sketch, and this is actually just a reverse of the handle we just learned. So you could use the same technique for the handle. Click and draw a little rectangle, dimension it at 2 inches by 0.25. Put in a center line at the middle, and let's just drag it over. And we have to find the center. There we go. Just lock it in. And let's add another dimension. We have to take a look at the print here. It's 0.25 offset from center of the radius at the bottom. So to do that, go to Smart Dimension, select this point to this, 0.25. Now don't worry if it extends further than it needs to, because it's just cutting air at that point. Let's go to Features, Extrude Cut, 0.25 deep, no draft needed. Hit the green check. Now change it to the material brass. So right over here, right click on materials. You could go to End Materials and find in there, but there is a quick way right here. Click on brass, and now you've just made it to brass. Select this face, start a sketch, and we can put the text on. Go to the front view orientation and use the trick we used with at Lab 2, and draw one here and make sure it goes across, and change that to For Construction. Go to the letter A, and it's already selected for us, and go ahead and put your initials in. Make sure you could have them spread across or fully justify. Hit the green check. Go to Features, Extrude Cut, and set it to 0.01 because these are very small for the engraving. And it's very dark, but if you turn off your real view, it looks more like that. And that finishes Lab 3. Now there's actually Lab 3B, which is a review for revolve features. And I'm not going to put all the dimensions in for this one. By this time, you need to start working on these on your own. Remember, when you get a job out there, there's no video to help you do these things. So there's some challenges that await. And so as you see here, I'm not going to put all those dimensions in, but let's start with the new part file. Select the front plane, start a sketch. Take the line tool and actually go with the center line first because we need to revolve around a center line. And now take the line tool, and off of that we could go ahead and get a distance away and use the dimensions on the print. Again, I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. Notice I'm going parallel. I have a little parallel symbol to the right of my pointer. You could find that easily. Drag this out further here. Go parallel again. Drag this in. Line to that and connect. Now to add the dimensions, don't make the mistake of clicking on here and getting a straight with dimension. Hit Escape. You want the dimensions to be added this way, from here to here. And then you could go ahead and look back at the print, and we can see that's 0.375. And then as we look back at some of the other dimensions, the overall height is 1.5, so from here to here. And if this ever happens to you, don't panic. It's really easy to fix. Hit escape, grab this line, and drag it down. Now, unfortunately, when it did that, it reversed this. So we could click on that, hold Control, select this, and make them parallel. Okay, now the bottom one, click here to here, 0.25. And then, well, what the heck, we'll do these because it's not very hard. And then the next one is 2.25 from here to here. Okay, and then the center hole we can see is 1 inch, so we have to put in from here to here and make that 1, and that will relocate it. The angle needs to be added, and the angle by default is 25 degrees from this. So click here to here and add 25. Now it's starting to come into its own. We see 0.25 and 0.25, so from here to here, 0.25, and this we could just, oops, I accidentally selected that. Escape, there, 0.25. All right, and then this is floating, so we need to click on that and then hold Control and select the center line. Now you could draw a center line to connect them, but select the vertex actually of the origin, holding Control and this bottom line, and make them coincident, and it will align it. Now you could go to Features, Revolve Boss Base, should go, because there's only one center line, it'll go 360 degrees, and we could put that fillet in there right here, radius of 0.5, just as an ordinary fillet. So 0.5, and select this edge, hit the green check, and now you've just completed Lab 3B. Now when you save these, you're just going to File, Save As, and save it as, like this will be L3B, last one was L3 for Lab 3. Feel free again to dress those up if you like. And that concludes exercise 3.